I can see whether or not we are actually streaming. Oh, that's YouTube. There's Twitch. Alright, it looks like we are live on Twitch. I'll go tell everybody I know. Streaming spaceship stuff on Twitch. Game dev, paste. I guess I'll do that over here as well. Oh yeah, that's right. And streaming spaceship stuff on Twitch, paste. All right. A little bit late getting started today because I didn't realize until about 15 minutes ago that I was incredibly hungry and hadn't eaten anything. So I had to eat lunch, and in fact I still have a smoothie on the desk, which I may sip from. In fact, I'm going to, because otherwise it'll melt and go bad in the 2 or 3 hours that I stream. So, with that in mind, I've been working on some spaceship stuff, and I've been agonizing over it a little bit too much, and trying to figure out how things should look. And the biggest problem is that I need to have parts that look good, regardless of the greebling situation. So the parts can't have greebles built into them. This is an example of a part that has greebles built in. It's got some depth and some marks. This is a part that doesn't have very many greebles, and you can see that it's a fairly straightforward construction. What I've relied on is some simple markings and some shape etching that's very lightweight. The overall shape of the piece can be easily combined with any sort of setup that you need it to have, so it can be merged into your ship in any way you'd like it to be merged in, and that should be something that works out fairly well. Now all I have to do is make 800 more parts. So that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to start with a fuel tank. I've got a fuel tank already, that one, but it's too greebled. I need a much more basic fuel tank. What we're going to do is we're going to create a xenon fuel tank. Xenon is the particle of choice when attempting to use particle engines, electric thrusters. Those are the sorts of things that Star Trek uses, but we also use them in real life. And Star Trek uses a kind of, fantasy version, obviously. So we don't want to have a cylindrical tube. I mean, we can have it as part, but the basic problem is that a cylindrical tube is a very limited part, visually speaking. It's much better to have some other shape. So what we're going to go with is actually like a braced, a sort of hot dog sort of thing. Smoothies are good. I know it was critical that everyone hear that. Alright, so this as a xenon tank might be a little bit too big. We're going to pull this whole thing in slightly, and then this can go down. And then we're going to put in a circle, like so. Yep. Boom. We are. And basically this will be the actual tank, this circle here. And that's the basic idea that I'm going to go with, but we're going to go and make it a little bit more interesting and less arbitrary. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to make it so that one end is just a flattened off tip, whereas the other end is going to have some kind of plug, so that you can actually absorb fuel from our fuel tank. And we're going to go ahead and make the plug a little bit more interesting than just a round hole. So what we'll do is we'll create a flat spot like this, and then we'll duplicate this circle move it down. We actually would like this circle to be on a clean point, so we're going to go ahead and create a new circle. That didn't work. Oh, come on, rotate X 90. Scale 0.25, and then drag it out. There we are. If it is going to be there. Oh, I guess it was on a clean circle after all. I wasted some time there. But that's a good place for us to have a mount, because that is a snappable mounting location. So when we have someone trying to connect something to it, it will just naturally flip into that spot, slip right in without any sort of difficulty. There we go, like that. But that's not the only thing we want. We're also going to want to have a smaller plug above it. So for that, we're going to want to do a deselect checker and then dissolve those verts so that we don't have a super high poly situation. Don't need that many polys. And then we'll just create another plug. Oh, that's not too bad. All right, so let's go ahead and clean this up and get it ready for a production sort of environment. What we have a problem with right now is, I believe that this... Oh, no, it's not. It's just below. That's good. So what we want this to look like is something that's acceptable to players, something that they think it looks good and right. So what we're going to do is grab this top face and extrude it upwards just a little bit to hug in the pipe a little bit better. And then we're going to start to slice it. The reason we have to slice it is in case the player wants to stretch or deform the mesh, we need to have a setup that allows for that. And now we're going to go ahead and smooth it, auto smooth it. It looks like we have an x-axis mirror, but I didn't cut any of these elements, so we're going to go in and cut x-axis elements so that our mirroring can take care of some of the work. And we're going to need to repair some faces. There we are. No biggie. I think I put a face in the wrong spot there. It's supposed to be here. There we are. That's better. So we're going to need to have some materials. Let's go ahead and set them up. We got hull. We're going to have warning as well, and we can use a highlight. I'm just not sure if that highlight's going to be any good. And it looks like I accidentally deleted one of the lines we needed, so I'll just have to redo that there. And this also. There we are. So let's go ahead and think about how we want this to look. Now in terms of warning, that's a good label for us to have here on the plugs. So we'll go ahead and set the plugs up to have a warning icon like so. And we also want the tank itself to feel like it is you know, something that's a little dangerous. We're going to go sharpen these edges here. And then we're going to put in a warning here and here. Now you don't want to overdo the visuals, because the whole point is that this is going to get textured on the fly later, and we're not going to need to have it greebled ahead of time. But we do want it to be decorated in such a way that it can be useful to the player. So that's where we're going to bring in the highlight here. Oh, look at that. It looks like we don't have clipping turned on, and I ended up making something stupid happen. That should be okay if we just grab it like that and drag it back into shape. There we are. Alright, so let's pretend that didn't happen and try again. What we're going to be doing is bringing in the highlight as an edge element. This is an easy way for us to set up just a pretty typical little bit of decoration. I'm also going to go ahead and bring in this whole bottom area as highlight. just so that we can have it do whatever we need it to do. I would like to cut, but I don't want to cut all the way up like that. I guess it's okay, but it's not ideal. What we're going to want is a little bit of mounting element. So just bring these down like so, and we will make that whole mounting element a warning element, like so. There we are. So that is our fuel tank for Xenon. And it just takes some, you know, hyper compressed frozen Xenon or liquid Xenon, and you can fire that out of your engines on the cheap. The good thing about having a Xenon tank, this sort of tank, basically has an extremely high ratio of fuel to thrust. So you can live with a Xenon tank for a really long time before you have to refuel it. The downside, of course, is that that thrust is very small. Particle engines are not known for their high thrust. They're known for their high thrust to weight ratios, or thrust to fuel use ratios. But that fuel only gets used up very, very slowly, and the thruster only works very, very slowly. But that's not something that we have to keep in science fiction. If we're doing sci-fi, we can boost it. And you can see how well that looks. Of course, that's how it looks with a fuel tank we no longer plan to use. Maybe we should try and see how it looks with some other setup. So if we're just mounting it inside this area, you can see that that would fit two just fine. So if we duplicate this and rotate it around the y-axis, you can see that we could just mount two of them back to back if we would like. That will produce some clipping problems with the mounting legs. Oh, I guess it won't. Okay, so that's fine. So that will work not too badly. Oh, there's the clipping problems right there. So we're going to need to adjust the legs just a little bit in order to make that clipping problem go away. And the way to do that is to grab these edge elements that are going to clip and just pull them in. Oh, I guess they're not. Yep. Yep. Hello? Did I not select it? I thought I did. There we are. Just bring them in a touch so that there's no more clipping. This, of course, is a clone that I didn't actually make it a proper clone, so it had a little bit of an error. There we are. So now that there's no clipping problems, you can see how this pair of tanks would look pretty decent mounted in here. And they would also look pretty decent mounted up on the object itself. And you can see how this is going to start to look when we start to pull things together. We're going to have a fairly nice set of simple objects that look decent when you toss them together in a grid. You'll be allowed to not use the grid too, of course. You'll be able to use whatever you'd like, whether it's a grid or not. Either way, we can see that we could put in more stuff like this, and you'd end up with stuff like that. As far as grids go, you can see how that snaps a little bit badly to the inside. If we moved it only 0.5, that's substantially better. The default for this ship will probably be a 0.5, so you know that's pretty typical. Yeah. So if I rotate that on the y-axis and then bring it down, no, too far. Yeah, you can sort of see where we're getting our stuff here. Yeah, this is gonna work out okay, but I'll probably have to rebuild all these parts later on with a better set of constraints. Anyway, Xenon tank needs to be unwrapped. To be honest, I don't think these have to be unwrapped. I plan to use algorithmic texturing, but I'll unwrap them anyway just for the sake of having it unwrapped. So this was our rocket fuel tank. And you can see that it's really detailed, which is the wrong thing to do. I don't want a detailed tank. I want a very, very basic tank. Something that I can fit in with these other parts. This has got too many details, so let's go ahead and create a new tank. Now, fundamentally, all tanks start as circles, but the question is, how can you make this circle not a tube? Because tubes are bad. Discs are even worse, but tubes are really bad. So what we would really like to do is have a setup where our rocket tank tube is concealed in some way, or is only a tube for a small portion, but we can't over-decorate it. With the Xenon tank, I did this kind of hot dog thing, and I could do that again, but I don't think I want to repeat myself too much in terms of the basic shapes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this tank substantially larger, and you can see that this is large enough that if we put it inside, it'll actually overlap the braces. And the way we'll do that is our mounting will be baked into this spherical shape somewhat. So to do that, what we're going to want to do is cut it in half and turn on mirroring. All right, and what we'll want is to just create some surface element here, like this, and then it'll create some texture to the shape without necessarily making it too complicated. But that's not all we're wanting to do. We are going to want to have this scaled down, like so, and then bring it out like that. And then we're going to want to turn this into a mounting system. So for a mounting system, I'm going to go ahead and do some cuts. And then we're going to just have these come down. But I'm going to do a little bit more cutting, just so that we have a little bit of a boundary layer. There we are. And here, all of these get extruded. So just extrude straight down on the Z. Yep, there we are. And then we'll scale the Z 0. There we are. We don't actually want to scale Z 0. We do want some shape to it. But here's the thing. We actually want the opposite shape. So, you know, we could scale Z negative 0.2 or something, or we can just build this opposing shape ourselves, which is a little bit more straightforward, so that's what we'll do. It'll allow us to have a shape that's not exactly a circle, which is nice. It's nice. There we are. So with that sort of shape, we can have the same sort of feel as the hot dog, but it's not going to be quite as, I don't know the word I'm looking for, quite as hot doggy. It's not going to look like the same thing, so we can get away with it. And what I'm going to do here is reshape the circle so that we get a little bit more of a bowed out shape up front, and then we can make the nose something other than a simple circle. So to handle that, what we're going to want to do is just bring this guy in a touch and then extrude these like so. Now with that done, we can actually get a lot more aggressive with that extrusion, like that. Yeah, there we are. And with that done, we can just close this and close this. There we are. Yeah, so let's go ahead and smooth that and turn on auto smooth and just see whether or not we have a good feel for the shape. You can see that this isn't working very well here. So we're gonna want to try and massage this element into feeling like it's part of the flow of the system. And there's a lot of ways to do that. I'm just gonna eyeball it though, like that. No, that's not gonna work. Instead, what we might want to do is the opposite. We may want to have this come out so that it feels more like it is part of that edge. We're going to have to cut this lower plane up if we do that, though, so it's not a big deal. Just cut. There we are. I don't know, this doesn't feel right. There's something screwy with how this front end feels. And I think it's entirely this part's fault. So let's go ahead and just cut these faces. Cut all of these pieces. Like that. Alright, so the core problem is that this bowed element down here is not behaving well. So let's delete that bowed element. And then instead, we'll just close that off. And with that happening, we can take this and bring it into alignment. Come on. Extrude it across, build a face. And now this can be turned into our bulging area. But you can see what the problem here is. The top is not balanced with the bottom. The top and the bottom have different projections. So if we want to have this really work, we'll want to use the same surface for both. And if you take a look at the side, you can see that now they're even. The top and the bottom are now even. And that was probably what was giving us most of the issues I was seeing in terms of the visual not looking decent. Bonk. And then we'll just close these off like this. Oh, but you can see that we need to cut and then do some extra work. There we go. Oh, there we are. All right, so now that looks a little bit better, but that doesn't look like it's not a circle. In fact, it looks like it's very definitely a circle. If we wanted to, we could pull these elements back to give it a little bit of a slope. Let's just see how that looks. I think it's probably better than leaving it as a heavy circular element, but it's certainly not fantastic. We'll go ahead and mark this whole seam as sharp. No, that's not going to be good. Undo. Trying to figure out how to make this look good without over-greebling it. Well, let's go ahead and work on this side for a little bit. What we're going to want for this side is to make it into a plug, similar to the way we did with the other device, the other tank. So for that, we're going to want to create a new circle, rotate 90 degrees, scale 0.25, and move it into place. And it's going to be on a nice integer snap, so we can easily snap to it, and it's the same size as the other one. It's not going to be shaped the same way exactly, but all of them look similar enough that you can just use visually one kind of pipe to connect them, and it'll always just work. But of course, this is extra size. There's extra verts because we're on both sides of the x-axis when we actually only want 1/2. So we're gonna have to deal with that in a minute. But you can see how small this is in comparison to the overall size of the tank. So what we're gonna want to do is decorate this just a little bit. You don't want to put in much decoration or it won't feel right. But a little bit of decoration goes a long way. What I'm trying to do, there we are. There we are, like that. And then, of course, what we're going to want to do is add in a smaller brace. Erdroy stopped in. Hello, Erdroy. Sorry, I haven't looked at the chat in a while, so I don't know when you got here. Hopefully it hasn't been too long. We're building ships all day, so that is today's task. The ships are being constructed piece by piece. There we go. Well, we're going to want to make this look a little bit more interesting, which we can do by dragging these out of kilter with the center plug, like that. There we are. Now, those are, of course, highly detailed, and we could get away with a much less detailed plug, but I think that for plugs, it's fine, because those are things that the player is supposed to be aware of. these are actually going to have plugs attached to them. The player is going to wire them up, or the ship will wire itself up. So this is not something that is part of the overall decoration. This is a functional UI element. Hopefully. Now this side still looks pretty terrible though. I don't like it at all. What I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut all of these verts and these verts, and we'll just flatten this whole surface down. So we can do it like this with a bridge edge loops, and we'll make it perfectly flat like that. But then what we'll do is we will add in a color difference. So for that we're going to want, come on, for that we're going to want to do hull and warning and, oop, too many slots. I got to go out of edit mode to remove them and highlight. So over here on this side, what we're going to do is we're going to grab all of the faces that are on this surface area, and we'll turn them into warning. And that'll be nice and obvious. That might be too obvious. Let's turn them into highlight. Highlight. And then warning can be here. And of course over here on the plugs, we're also going to need to put a little bit of warning in, like this. Warning. And we're going to want to close off that front cap now that we have deleted half of them. That's too much warning there. We'll go ahead and make that highlight just so that it exists. Now, how else do we want to highlight this? Well, with the previous one, we highlighted along the edge, as you can see. In this case, I think what we're going to want to do is highlight the same edge, but on the bottom rather than on the top. So, yeah, come on. Can't click on stuff today. I'm having a real hard time getting my mouse to actually hit the things I'm aiming for. What we're going to do is make these highlight. Like so. And then we're going to make these warning. I could probably box select a lot faster than that, but that's fine. Alright, so this is the, at least the first take of the tank we're looking to do, but it has a problem right here at this edge. This is an indistinct edge. And I think we're going to have to just accept the fact that we have to put a little bit more decoration in order to make this edge work. So let's try highlight. I think that's the only option we've got. And then these, we'll just make warning. All right, so just to see, name it first, call this fuel tank. There we are. And if we move this into alignment with the other tank, you can see that it's substantially larger than the Xenon tank, but it has the same basic design. Even though it has the same basic design, it doesn't look the same way. Now this is the old fuel tank below it, and you can see the difference in how they look. This is a heavily greebled, deepened object. We can't really live with that. We've got to have simpler objects because we're going to be allowing the player to put in the greebles. This is large enough that trying to align it on the center area here doesn't work out. I could shrink it until aligning it does. If we do it like that, then it's got to be quite a bit smaller. Another option is we can mount it to the outside, but you can see that the mounting area here is quite wide, much wider than the actual mounting surface of the structural beams. It may be that I have to change something, but I don't really know what. You can always, of course, go for the duplication mount like this, but then you get clipping as we did before. This area here is going to have some popped clipping elements. You can already see it. In order to prevent that, we would need to tilt slightly or something similar So that's what we'll do. We'll just grab this layer here and this layer here, and we will scale down very slightly. That's the wrong one though, so we'll do it on this guy. Rather than rescaling the clone. We could also scale it out, but scaling it in is a little bit better in this case, I think. And now we don't have the aggressive pop through, but we still have the pop through on these blue surfaces, so we're just going to grab this and do the same thing and move it in just very slightly, just to prevent Z-clipping, Z-fighting. Yeah. So now if we have two of these guys merged up, you can see that they don't fight. There's no... Well, there's a little bit of Z fighting still in the interior edge of these mounts, so I guess we do have to fix those as well. Which we can do by grabbing those interior edges and scaling them any direction we please. Out is fine. Boom. Alright, now we don't have any Z fighting. Alright, good. And it actually doesn't look too bad with two of them butted up against each other like this. You sort of get the feeling that maybe that's how they were intended to be used. And that's kind of the point. No matter how you mount them up, no matter how they overlap, you get the feeling that, you know, some designer probably intended it to be like that. There's still a lot of things I have not solved yet at this sort of design. And one of them is definitely how big heavy elements are going to be mounted. We have to think about that. I have to think about that. You guys are exempt. For some reason, I can't. Okay, I was upside down. The mouse was, the camera was upside down. That was weird. What we're going to do for the final couple of moments here is we're going to move this up, just so that it actually mounts at the 0 point rather than at the 1 point. Sorry, I gotta get through this smoothie before it turns all melty and rancid. So that's our tanks, but we still have to do the engines. Now, with the engines, we've got a lot of different options, but in your head, I want you to think about spaceships, and I think you'll think of engines as looking at like one of two things. The first is that they look like rocket nozzles, and they're just kind of buried inside of some kind of cowling, or maybe they're just rocket nozzles attached to a fuel tank. That's pretty common too. The other option is that they are some kind of long shotgun-shaped thing, like the Enterprise's nacelles. Well, we have two different kinds of engines that we want people to use. We want them to use the rocket engines, and we want them to use the particle engines, the energy engines. The rocket engines, they take in fuel, several different kinds of fuel, they mix it together, they have a little turbocharger that fires, and the whole thing shoots out a massive energy, massive rocket thing. Particle system uses a set of magnets and a superheater to take the xenon and turn it into a explosive gas, a gas that moves extremely fast through the magnets, charged with a specific charge and then fired out the back of the ship. Visually speaking, with the ship, how do we want that to be represented? Well, in the end, I think that we're going to want them both to look like shotgun-style engines, like Enterprise nacelle-style engines. One of the big reasons for that is just because it makes moving them feel cooler. We also have maneuvering jets, which aren't going to be shotgun-shaped. Sorry, just let me finish this off back here in the background. I don't know if you can actually hear me sucking away at this, but you'll hear it in a second. I don't usually have smoothies, but I figured why not? It's like 90. All right. So There are going to be 4 or 5 distinct engines that we're going to need to actually build today. We're going to need to have the rocket engine, the ion engine, the rocket engine with maneuvering jets, the maneuvering jet on its own, and potentially a multi-directional maneuvering jet. So all of those are going to be things that we have to build. And they're probably all going to be built out of the same sort of feel. The question is, what is that feel going to be? Well, the big key here is that we want to avoid having any sort of element that feels like a tube. Tubes are forbidden. So in order to get around that, we're going to try to use non-tubular elements like these. But we also just don't want the engine to look like, you know, a stogie or something. It has to look, not a stogie, sorry, a box. It has to look like it's something that has, you know, a technological purpose. But we can't greeble it. So we've got a lot of constraints, and we have to fight our way through this rather complex set of constraints to try and figure out what's a good look for our engines. And so what we're going to do here is we're just going to build a rocket engine system. And there are a couple of things that the rocket engines have to do. They have to take in fuel, which means that we're going to need to have a mount, you know, a plug, and they have to be able to turn that into explosive gas and then fire it at the back. So right now we don't have any of that stuff built, but let's go ahead and start with our tube. Nope, too much clipping. Rotate X90. What's going on here? Oh, I didn't press rotate, I pressed scale. That would be it. There we are. So this is the size of the ports on these tanks. If we bring over one of these tanks and drop it down, you can take a look. Matched ports. In fact, we could go over into that tank and just steal its ports. So let's go ahead and do just that. Duplicate and punch. And then bring that port over here. And then we will, I guess we'll just join it and we'll rotate it into position in a moment here. Rotate X90. That's, there we are. Rotate X 180. Yoink. All right, there we are. Now, of course, we don't need all of these verts. So let's get rid of the ones that fall below the waterline. Yay! Including you. And you. Anyone else? No? Okay. Unfortunately, that means that we do have to reseal these edges. Turn clipping back on for that. There we are. So that will be our plug, and you can either directly mount them or you can use cables. Now, the reason that you might want to use cables is because these rockets produce a hell of a lot of thrust, and if they're not mounted on a structural element, you're likely to snap your tank in half as your rocket engine pushes straight on through it. So that could be fun. Now, this has a complex output, but this only has a simple input. We could make it have a more complex input, but then we'd need specialized cables, and I'm not sure I want to go that way. So instead, we're just going to go ahead and leave it as a simple input, at least for the moment. But that doesn't mean that's not, you know, we can do a lot of other things here. Either way, let's take this down to be a little bit beveled, like this. Oh, this. There we are. And we're going to want to give the impression that there's stuff inside of here that is, you know, ready to be firing on all engines. Don't really know the best way to do that without greebling, but I think what I want to do is just add in some sort of decalish situations. So for example, if we were going to cut here down to here, and then we could just color like this. We could make that all highlight. And this can be just adjusted until it looks correct. In fact, we could switch over to being at active element, and then there we are. Nice flat adjustment here. That sort of very simple decoration should work out well in terms of how it looks with the rest of the ship, but it's not clear that it's a rocket, and that's going to be an issue that we're going to have to fight with, I'm afraid. Either way, what we're going to want to do is bring this into alignment as a cowling system. There we are. Something like that will work fine. You can just remove all the doubles to get rid of some of that chaff. And now we're going to want to add in some stuff. So let's go ahead and move this just a little bit. And then we'll drop in some engine elements. Oh. Okay, so that's too big. Let's go ahead and shrink it and then move it into position here. Flip it. Someone is listening to really loud music, but it's not one of the normal suspects. I don't know if you can hear that. The song's going boop boo doo boo doo boo doo boo doo, rather than being, you know, rap or techno. It sounds like it is. Oh, that's my upstairs neighbor. They've decided to have an extremely loud musical party. This is the first time they've done it while I was trying to stream. They are 80 and mostly deaf, and their musical preference is stuck in the 40s, I think. I don't know if you can hear that. You will, because they'll just keep turning it up and up and up until they get sick of whatever they're doing. Doom ba-doom doom 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 ba-doom doom. Obviously, I would prefer it if they didn't do it on the days I was trying to stream, but it's hard to get upset at an 80-year-old. I think it's literally the only way she can hear the music. All right, now let's do, you know, the thing that we all knew was coming, and that's going to be beveling. There we are. Last thing we want to do is smooth all these faces and turn on the auto smoothing. I hope everyone can hear me. I haven't even checked. Yeah. Actually, I'm not sure that you can, because it looks like I'm only getting... Is it turned way down? Which way does the gain go to turn it up? Is this up? I think I might have knocked it. Is this up or down? That's down. Okay. Interesting. Why is it so quiet? That's a lot quieter than I expected. Sorry if... that might explain why nobody stuck around today, because I can't friggin' hear me. Hey! Why is this mic so quiet? Is it not using this mic? I'm gonna do some mic stuff for a second if it gets annoying. Sorry. Alright, so that's interesting. The mic is only coming up to a tiny, tiny fraction of what it normally reaches. It normally goes pretty close to the max, and this time it's like at 2/3. And the gain is pretty much all the way up, so I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe my voice is really weak today. No, because I mean I turned the gain up 30 or 40% and it's still not giving me any better input. So I bet what's going on here is that I need to reboot my machine, but I can't do that today. Let me know if you can hear it. Okay, so Neo Dragoon 195. It says Erdroy says it's actually too loud. I think that there might just be something wrong with the way it's displaying. Then I'll put it back to where it was, and we'll just hope that that's correct. Feel free to tell me whether or not my voice is too loud or too quiet. I am happy to adjust my volume, but I can't hear it. All I can hear is doom 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 doom. We're also going to add in an interior, and obviously that's going to be for all of these interior elements. Wow, that is really loud. I'm very curious as to whether or not you guys can even hear it, though. I think you can, because it's behind me, and that goes straight into my mic. Well, either way. Ardroy says haha, and Neo Dragoon says lol. So my jokes are very funny, I guess. Alright, so here we have our basic setup, and what I think I want to do is remove this like that there. So this is the basic shape I want our engine to be. This needs to have itself cut up pretty much more aggressively so that we can actually see some shapes there. Sharpen it, there we are. This is the basic shape I might want, more or less. But the problem is I don't like the way that it looks, really. I think what I need to do is have another set of things somewhere in here that make it distinct. Something to give it a reason to look the way it does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some beveling here. And then we're going to shrink this in and just give it a little bit of texture. And basically we're trying to give it the impression that this is an engine that has machinery inside of it. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to add in just a little bit of depth. Not enough to be noticeable, but enough that, that people will be able to tell that it's an engine. So what we're adding in now is the overcharger, the hypercompressor. I forget what they're called, the turbocharger. Well, whatever we're adding in, we're going to end up shrinking it and then bringing it out like this. Now, we don't need all of these verts, so let's delete most of them. We don't even need this many, but this is better than the alternative. You can see that what we've got here is it's separated off of the matching mirrored plane, but that's okay because we can use that to create a nice set of double elements here. So yeah, like that. And these guys we can set up to have a warning color. And that way they appear to exist rather than the engine being incredibly arbitrary in terms of just being a cereal box with holes in the sides, or holes in the ends. The last thing I think I want to do is just shape this tip a little bit, but I can't do that while we have it all mirrored. So we're going to end up turning off the x-axis mirroring and then bringing it back, just so that we can alter on the z-axis here with a Control-Shift-Alt-S. Oh, I didn't catch all the things I needed to catch. One more time. And by just bringing in a little bit of a shape, like so, we can give it a little bit of style. Yeah. So when we bring this into the ship's arrangement here, this might be the sort of thing that you do. You put it on the bracing. Hold on. Let's go ahead and now that we're no longer mirroring on the z-axis, let's move it properly, like so. There, like that. And you can see how that doesn't look too bad. It looks like that's kind of how it's intended to be. Similarly, if we wanted to mount this on top of it or whatever, we can set this up to have any sort of arrangement we think would look good. We're going to have to redo these parts over the long run because, you know, there's going to be a lot of times when how I've set it up isn't actually going to end up working. But the basic idea should still carry through, even if it looks a little bit wrong, hopefully. Anyway, here is the rocket tank. We can just stick that in there. And you can see this is the sort of thing you might end up with a little bit of a cable here. You may also mount it on something that's got a hinge, so you can move the rocket engine around. It sounds like my neighbor has turned off their music, so I don't even know whether any of you could hear that in the first place, but it doesn't sound like they're playing it anymore. All right. So that is going to be our primary rocket thruster, and that's going to just burn rocket fuel to have you accelerate quite rapidly. But we can also have a particle accelerator. The particle accelerators of today come in a couple of different varieties, but the oval is probably the most iconic. So that's what we're going to go ahead and start with. So the oval shape, well, let's go ahead and move some of this stuff. It's a little bit in the way-y. Boink, there. So this oval shape that we're talking about is at the outside, at the back of the motor, and it's actually more like a racetrack than an oval. In fact, I think they're called racetrack emitters. But what we'll do is we'll just delete some of these verts and then hook these up here. And then what we'll do is bevel these points. I don't know if I can bevel at that. No, I have to wait until they're faces. That's fine. We'll go ahead and turn them into faces. So we're going to recalculate the normals and then flip them. There we are. And then I can just grab these edges and bevel them so that our racetrack looks a little bit more racetracky. Yeah, there we are. That's a ticket. And we're going to just delete half of them. Oh, we don't have any cuts down the middle. Now we do. Boom. And the reason I did that is because these need to be adjusted, and it was going to be annoying to adjust them with X-axis mirroring turned off. That ought to do us. So now what we're going to want to do is just continue to extrude down and in. And we're going to want to set up our materials early for this one. So we're going to have hull, then we're going to have glow, and then we're going to have whatever else we want, probably warning or highlight. We definitely want highlight. So we're going to make these interior elements glow like this. Nope, nope, there, boom. And that's actually how they look. That's how these engines legitimately look. So that's very sci-fi, right? But I don't think they're quite that tall, so we're going to just bring them in a little bit there. And now we're going to turn this into a cereal box. So with this sort of setup, the idea is that the magnets are probably what takes the most space. And so what we're going to try and set up here is the idea of a double U. Rather than a W, it's like two U's that are sort of almost connected at the tips. And for that, I think the easiest thing for us to do is to start off with a circle. And we'll move it a little bit just so we can work on it. We'll delete half of it. Come on. And then we will want to undo our clipping, pull it out, turn the clipping back on, and then we can extrude in. So when we extrude, the easiest thing for us to do is to turn on active elements like this. And then when we extrude, we can extrude towards that active element. That will keep us at the same X location, which is kind of the point. However, it will cause drift on the other axes. So the obvious solution to this is that what we really want to do is extrude towards our 3D cursor. Like so. And then turn off the Y. Like that. That's more or less right. We'll move the whole thing out a little bit more. And then we are going to finish this off by extruding these inner elements like so. And this is the final extrusion, except for that all the normals are wrong. There we are. That's better. This is the sort of thing I'm thinking of, but it's a little bit too round, so we're going to go ahead and unround it. Ooh, that didn't work. Why is that not working right? Oh, it's not actually taking the entire edge, as you can see. That's interesting. I don't know why it's suddenly not highlighting it. Did I extrude it twice or something? No? What's going on? Why is it... remove doubles. I don't know what was going on there, but apparently I had some verts hidden in that mess that it did not much like. There we are. So with that, what we want to do is take these elements and shrink them a little bit, and then just continue, shrink, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and delete this edge loop and then recreate it, just so we have a flat element there. And then we can grab these guys and scale them up on the Z-axis. And then we can delete these. And basically the only thing I'm trying to do is not have it look like a circle. Which is kind of silly given that I created it as a circle on purpose. But, you know, we work with what we're working with. So we're going to just shrink these on the x-axis a tiny bit, like this. So one of the things that you may not realize about ion drive engines is that they have an emitter at the edge which neutralizes the passing ions so that they don't come flying back at the ship due to magnetic charges. That's going to be our primary element, visual element for this engine. And I'm questioning right now whether or not I want to have the z-axis mirroring. I don't think I do. I think what I want to do is the same tilt technique, so there's not any real good reason to use z-axis mirroring. But what we're going to do is select the edges and then bridge them. And that is just fine for what we need in terms of how it should look. But we are going to, well, you know, I guess it'll be fine because we're going to be, no, I do want to do one more thing first. I want to move this off of center. There we are. Now we can grab this and bridge them. There we are. And what we'll do is we'll put the emitter right up here. Now for our emitter, we're just going to grab this guy, duplicate him, extrude him downwards, select him again, extrude him out, and you can see that that is backwards, so we'll just flip it. And it basically looks like a sprayer. That's not really a very technical term, I suppose, but it doesn't look like a very technologically advanced tool. So that's basically what we're going to be doing, is creating a sprayer, like the thing you find on the end of a hose. Oh, we lost a vert. Well, we could just click smooth a whole bunch, I guess. Oh, that's the wrong smooth. Click smooth in here a whole bunch. That'll do. And then we'll just bring it in. I think that's probably too small, though, so let's just go and grab this entire shebang and really make it significant. And here, we'll bring this. Oh, that's not what I wanted. There we are. I think it's too wide. All right, so that's more or less what it's supposed to look like. Man, that doesn't look very good. All right, so let's delete that and try again. What we'll do this time is we'll try for a mirrored x-axis element. And what we're going to do is just have it curve, and then we'll have them curve in towards each other slightly. Oh, that didn't work. God damn it. And rather than going in like a shower head, we'll go out. And let's add in a detail that will make it seem a little bit better, which is why I did this on the x-axis mirroring, so that I could do an off-center element like this and it would still look okay. Now if we take this whole thing and we rotate it like this, God, it still looks dumb as fuck. I have made cool looking versions of these, but obviously I have lost the touch somewhere along the line. I'm going to call this call this done for now. We'll have to revisit it later because this is, I mean, it looks like antennas or something. Hold on, let me just go look it up. Do a Google search for ion drive. Ion propulsion at NASA. Images, please. And damn it, all of these are the air-breathing ones. Those don't have to have the emitter. Ah. Oh, that's a cool way to do it. Yeah, let's do it like that. Okay, so let's delete this. I know you're all surprised, but let's go ahead and do this shotgun style emitter. I like how this looks. We seem to have some stray floating bits. That was weird. So basically what they have is some tubes. And although we don't want tubes for our structural elements, we can use tubes for our decorative ones. So just go ahead and move it over here just so we can work on it. Like that. And they have a bunch of cool little details on their tubes, so that's what we're going to have as well. For now, let's go ahead and shrink it on everything but the y-axis. There we are. And then this will be extruded out and then shrunk. And then we're going to want to have like a plug. Like that. And this can be moved forward and then closed like so. And this plug is a little bit too thin. There we are. And then back here, there are a couple of things going on. So we'll go ahead and seal this off. But what we're going to want to do is turn this back end into something that's not quite circular. I can't see chat. I mean, nobody's been talking, so I'm not too concerned. But just in case you're wondering if I have ignored something you've said, it's because I can't see chat right now. So drop this stuff in here. Scale up on everything but the y-axis. There we are. Perfect. All right, and then the last thing they have is like a rounded cable here. So that's just what we're going to grab from here, duplicate, bring it back. Oh, that's not how you bring it back. That's how you bring it back. Oh, Y. Y, come on. Rotate Z, 90. There we are. And then we'll just extrude inwards and seal it off. Oh, it's already sealed off. We're going to just flip it and then bring it down. And that is basically how it looks. So for our perspective, it would be best to delete these faces and then delete these. And then just move these into the main body here. Boom. And this is the basic form of the thing that we're trying to duplicate. But we're going to go ahead and do a trick here and connect them with a line that nobody will see so that we can select them as a unit. The whole thing is a little small, so we're going to buff it up just a touch. Bring it in and rotate it like so. Yeah, that's probably for the best. And then we're just going to adjust the rest of this structure until it fits our current need. So if we were to grab we can bring this out so that it kind of hugs our system a little bit. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things that we could do to make this curve nicely, and we're going to go ahead and do some of those. There we are, something like that. Maybe even something like this. Yeah, there we go. That's the ticket. And then we're going to want to cut here and bring it back. And that's probably for the fine. And now we're just going to want to have a mount, some kind of just a visual that shows that these things are actually on a surface and are not just floating in deep space. So to have that mount, we will just grab... That's interesting. Why is there a bulge on that side? Oh, because I moved the whole thing. That's right. Just move these so they're a little bit smoother. And then we're going to want to have a mount. So I guess this is probably the best thing to duplicate. Extrude it up. And then we can extrude it over. Looks like I didn't turn on clipping, so let's do that. Grab this whole thing and extrude it in. Okay. Obviously, we're just going to bevel. Then we can adjust this whole thing until it feels right. And there we are. And that's not too unrealistic. I mean, we could greeble this forever. We could do so much greebling to make this work out, but I don't want to. What I do want to do is grab the here it is. Bring it over here, rotate X 180, nope, rotate Z 180, bring it down, and go into it, yoink. And grab this, duplicate it, separate it, get rid of that. Wait, where did it go? Separate it. There we are. All right, so with that happening, we can just take this element. What's going on here? Am I being stupid? Join! There we are. So that's kind of floating high, but I don't know that that's bad. That might, well... Wait, how many of these do we have? She started up her music again. So I think what I want to do is simply extrude these forward and then cap them off. But we're going to want to cap them off a little bit better than that. So what we'll do is we will go ahead and select everything like this, and then we'll just deselect these edges and bridge the edge loops. Then we can cut, we can then remove the doubles, and boom, it's sealed off. But this is not a great visual, so let's go ahead and break things up just a little bit so that they're not quite as boring. And the other thing we want to do is have a mount system here on the bottom. So we'll just extrude and then shrink and then bring it down. And scale Z. Scale Z -1. Scale Z. Scale Z. And then we'll just bring in this yoink. And then this can be adjusted back. And this can be adjusted forward. And that way we won't have any Z fighting. Okay, so that is more or less right. I think that this is... I can't tell if this is backwards or not. I think it just looks the same color as everything else due to some stupidity. We're also going to want a forward mount just in case people want one. There we are. So let's start the decorating process. Close this. And we're going to mark these as warning. And we're also going to mark this outside edge as warning. And lastly, we're going to mark these as warning. And that's all the warning I think we're going to need. Except that this didn't get highlighted. Oh, because it's not quite even. Oh, I see. There's actually no... That's fine. We won't bother then. For the highlight, we're going to want to have it highlight in a fun way. And I think that that's probably going to be best if we highlight down the middle. Like that. And then we can also highlight these. And this. Boom, 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 boom. What is this? What is going on here? Do we have a 0 width? We do. Okay, so let's just drag that in so that it looks a little bit less bad, and then we'll drag this back. Now that we have that, we might as well shape that and contour it so that it looks decent. Which we can do by slicing, but we don't want to slice that way because that would add a lot of extra... Well, I guess it wouldn't add too many. We probably need to add some density there anyway. There we are, something like that. And then we can bevel, like this. We got a little diamond shape going here. We're going to just clear that. We don't need it to be visible. And the last thing we are going to want to do here is take these and... nope. Just the ones I want, please. Thank you. Oh. There we are. Alright, so we can actually do a little bit more shaping here. There we are, perfect. Alright, so now it doesn't look too bad. The sides are very bland, but that's probably fine. Let's go drag it over to the ship and see how that looks. We'll call this the Ion thruster. I don't think we named the rocket. Let's name that before I forget. Rocket thruster. Oh, it's really not in the right spot. Hold on, let me adjust this. There we are, that'll do. Now let's drag it back into the spots that it needs to be, just to test it and see. So if we were to put this down here, and compare and contrast it to how it looks compared to the rocket engine. So the rocket engine has a sort of projecting feeling, whereas this has some mounts at the front that make it feel a little bit lonely if you try and project it back like this. But that's on purpose. That's how I want it to be. One thing I forgot to do is add in that subtle bend that I wanted. So we'll just grab these. First off, let's hide these, and then we'll there must be a hotkey for turning certain visibility things on and off that I keep accidentally hitting. Either way, there we are, and then we can just unhide things. And actually, they're still in the right spot, so I guess I'm not too concerned. Well, I guess they're not in quite the right spot. Just move them out. And then that means this guy also gets moved out. And this guy. More UV project. There we go. Okay, so the basic idea here is that these rocket engines and these ion drives are supposed to have a different feel, but they can be mounted on the same sort of structures without feeling too embarrassed. The ion drive is a fat little drive, but that's on purpose because the drive itself is not very strong. From our perspective, having it feel like a fat little drive makes sense because it's supposed to feel slower and portlier than our rocket engine does. So the rocket engine is kind of streamlined and feels like a shotgun or something, and the ion drive just feels like it's kind of a slug, and that's kind of the point. If we take the ion drive xenon fuel engine, excuse me, this might be how you end up mounting it. Notice that there is a radically different set of sizes between the xenon fuel and the ion fuel. Sorry, the xenon fuel and the rocket fuel, and how they look compared to their engines. The rocket engine is much smaller than its tank, whereas the xenon engine is larger than its tank. And that's on purpose as well, although I'm not 100% sure that I'm gonna buy it. I don't know whether or not this is gonna feel right when it's actually being built. When someone's actually building it and they're like, why is this tank so small? But on the other hand, they can always mount it to the side of the ion drive itself. Like this. And have some cables coming back. There's something wrong with this ion drive. I ripped out... fuck. I accidentally damaged the port. I screwed up. I somehow pulled the only existing port out and ended up like removing it. So what we're going to need to do here is grab this and duplicate it and then punch it out like so. And then what we're going to do is Shift G or Control Alt G. There we are. And then this Alt G and then Alt R. There we go. And then this Alt R. Where did it go? There it is. So we'll just go and join it up. Rotate along the x-axis 180 like so. Unfortunately, it's not really at a nice square position anymore, but for now I guess that's fine. It's better than the way it was. Alright. So that is the primary rocket system, primary engine system. What's left is maneuvering jets, which I don't feel like tackling right now. Anyone want to see any particular part get made? Obviously, there's all sorts of parts that I need to make. For example, I don't even have any armor yet. Don't have a reactor. What sort of reactor would I want this system to have? Reactors are unfortunately spherical or tubular in my brain, so having them fit into this kind of cereal box shaped setup is a little bit challenging, but what I could do is not sure. I want there to be more than one kind of reactor, but I want them to be different tiers, and the upper tiers I want to have them be more fragile. So this lower tier engine, which is probably what I should start with, should feel like it's basically a giant slab of iron that can take a lot of heavy damage. So I think the easiest way to do with that is to start with a cube. And we'll go ahead and slice this cube down the middle and delete half of it. Turn on clipping. And then we're going to take this cube into... there we are. So the idea here is what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to create a futuristic feeling, kind of a sandwich, but it's going to have some detailing that should be pretty cool. We'll try it out here. So what we won't have is this here. Boom. Instead, what we're going to have in there is a round element like this. And bring that forward, scale it down, bring it down. Flip that. Flip it again. And I can actually bring this way down. There we are. And then this can be beveled, as you might have expected. And then what we can do is we can put in a cut here and bevel the cut. Just a little bit. And then this and this can be raised. Yep. Okay, something like that gives us a good feel without feeling like it's overly detailed. I don't want it to feel like there are a lot of raised elements or anything like that, because I got to avoid that gimbaled feeling. It's really easy to make something look cool if you just gimbal the hell out of it, but I got to tell you, that ain't gonna work in this particular environment. So, there we are. We're gonna want all of these to be the same height. There we are. We can also narrow this down so that these edge elements are slanted inwards, so that they so they sort of bracket the system a little bit better. But if we do that, we're going to have to slice it some more, because obviously that's not something that we want to have as a single object. It would just look really subpar. A single edge, I mean. If it was just a single edge, it would look really, really pretty bad. Oh, it looks like we have some convoluted situations here where you can see that we have folding lines. So if we were going to grab these and swing them over, you can see that we're causing all sorts of damage. There's something... Oh, I see what the problem is. These lines just need to be dragged forward. Because I dragged everything else forward, so obviously, right? Duh. Oh, darn it. There we go. Alright, so now we have like a coffin-shaped reactor. I think I want a little bit more detail than this, but I don't know what sort of detail I would like to have. I think maybe a raised element here would go well. Yeah, so it's nice and simple. Nothing complex about it. But that's fine. We don't need anything complex. We just need something nice and simple. We're going to put a little decal back here. Not much, just a little bit so that it looks reasonable. We're going to want to delete those lower faces. No reason to have extra faces where we don't need any. And the reason for that is because we can make that a specific color. So we got hull, we got highlight, and we got warning, because this is a nuclear reactor. So this is going to be highlighted like so. we're gonna end up making that warning now that I'm... No, wait. Trying to think about what part of this should be blue. And I think that what we need to make blue is these outside faces here and here. Boom. But we also need to delete some stuff because we've got extra verts. We have an x-axis mirror, so we need to delete everything on the other side of the x-axis. Now with this set up, we're going to want to have this be a warning. Come on. Warning. And we're going to go ahead and make this element also a warning. That should be fine. I don't think we need anything more complex than that, although we could always decorate this interior edge a little bit with a warning. Does it look decent if I make this warning as well? Yeah, I guess that's probably for the best. All right. So if I do that, I'm going to want to cut here, bring this over here, and do the same thing. Well, if I do that way, then I'm going to want to cut here, bring it down like this, like that. Yeah, and then change these to not warning. Boom. That's more or less correct. All right. This doesn't look very reactory to me, though. It feels a little bit too even. So what I'm thinking of is maybe I should put in some cuts. And then what I could do is just expand this area so that it feels a little bit more, a little bit less cascady, you know? Now it looks kind of like a cobra head. It's not necessarily bad. Well, I think that I need to take it down a notch out here on the edge. These are a little bit too wide, so we'll just... Oh. Bring them in a little bit. That's better. Now, how does it look when we smooth it and break it up? Okay, that's a little bit better, I guess. I'm not 100% sold, but I don't like having absolutely everything be the shape of a cereal box. They're all very boxy. This one isn't. So as you can see, this is far larger than fits nicely inside of our brackets. If we scale it down until the front fits and the back doesn't, we can sort of get a fun feel, because that means that when the player is building this, they can slot it in so that it's floating nicely, or so that it is getting caught by, you know, the braces, but they're both good. So we're going to go ahead and call that the correct scale. And then if you don't want to put it in there, and instead you want to put it like up here, there's no problem with that. You can do exactly that. And you can see it fits in just fine. Similarly, if you decide that you really want to have it like that, you can do so. It might be too decorated, though. I mean, I decorated it pretty heavily. Well, if we'll find out one way or the other. Okay. What should I do next? Not sure that I have another piece of 3D hardware in me, because I've been thinking pretty hard this whole time, and my brain's going, you know, it's Sunday. So maybe I should stop for the day. I'll probably do some more tomorrow. I'm not sure whether I'll stream or not. If anybody has any questions or wants me to do something before I sign off, this would be a good time to ask them. Got a late start, and I'm not getting a whole lot. It's only an hour-and-a-half long stream. This takes a lot of effort. The design phase requires a lot more brain work than you might think. It might actually be easier to do this offline, which is what I'll probably do. I'll probably go ahead and finish up this 3D ship offline, because 3D modeling, when I'm talking, it means I can't like go take a 20-minute break or anything like that. So after about 90 minutes, my brain's like, you've been working flat out for a while now, and this is not busy work, and shuts down. Although that peppy music in the background does help. Contras just stepped in. Well, Contras, you have great timing, because I'm about to stop. I'll pick this up some other day. I'll probably do most of this spaceship tomorrow, but not online, so that I can do it at a good pace. And then I will bring it all into Unity and wire it up. Probably on camera on Wednesday. I might go ahead and do a stream on Tuesday, depending on how I feel. Tuesday is a national holiday here in the US. So I have it off, and I could do a stream in what's the middle of the day to me, and it's probably late afternoon to most of you. All right, thanks for being here, and I'll see you again on Wednesday, or maybe earlier. Have a good one, everybody. Oh, where's my off button?